Hi and welcome to Aston St Mary's New Parents Transition Meeting. My name is Mrs Holmes.
And I'm Mrs Lale, and both of us will be the teachers in Shepperton class in September. Now, this isn't normally how we would plan to do our transition meeting. It would obviously be lovely to see you all in person, but hopefully this is enough to give you all the information that you will need to get yourself and your children ready for September.
And if you do have any questions, just jot them down as we go along, and then we'll give you an email address that you can send those to at the end. So as we said before, we work as a job share. So I work Monday, Tuesday and Friday, and Mrs Lale works Wednesday and Thursday. We have been job sharing for a number of years together, and it works really well. We spend a lot of time communicating with each other on the phone. We both have small children at home, and actually this year we both have a child starting reception. So we definitely understand some of the feelings that you might have with your children starting reception. So we are all in this together. So the aim of this session would really be to hopefully answer any questions you have about your child starting in September. We will first go through what the early years foundation stage looks like at Aston School, what the daily routine looks like here, the kinds of things your children will be getting up to. We will be going through some of the things that you could be doing at home to prepare your child for their start at school in September. Any general school information that we haven't already communicated and some reminders, and then a little bit about the transition that we hope to do between now and September with your child.
So, how do the children learn when they're in Shepperton? So, everything we do in the early years is all learned through play and through encouraging the children to explore, using active learning. We're trying to teach them to be creative and critical and have their own ideas and ultimately be really independent learners. We're really lucky that we have an amazing indoor and amazing outdoor classroom which we use throughout the year in all weathers, as we've got a canopy so we can be out there in the snow, we can be out there in the rain. And we've also got our wonderful field and our forest school area, so the children are really lucky because they have such amazing experiences, not just inside but also outside, and they absolutely thrive in an outdoor environment. So it's really important for us as a school that the children learn outside as much as possible. Everything that we teach the children, we try and use really hands-on and practical resources that are relevant to the children, and all the topics that we teach we try and link with the children's interests. So for example, we've had dinosaurs, we've done superheroes, we've done unicorns and fairies. So we try and link where possible to the things that we know the children will enjoy, but also where we can link it with things that we know that they need to also be taught as well throughout the year. In the environment, everything that we put out is purposefully planned, so it's not just that they're just playing. All the resources that are put out are there for a reason. It may be that we've highlighted an area that perhaps all the children really need to work on, or one or two individuals need to work on, so we've put that in place for them. It may be that they're really interested in something. So for example, when they're interested in dinosaurs, we had a dinosaur egg in the middle of the classroom and it really promoted lots of speaking and listening skills. So we're guided by them as much as possible, and we try and really make it fun and exciting for them to ultimately be really engaged and really excited about their learning. So throughout the year in the early years, we use 7 areas of learning which we use to guide our planning, and we also make an assessment of the children at the end of the year on these 7 areas. Now they're split into the prime areas of learning, which are the communication and language, physical development, personal, social and emotional development. Now these are the key areas that we really focus on before anything else, because without these prime areas, the specific areas are really quite hard for the children to grasp. So the specific areas of learning which come after the prime areas are literacy, maths, understanding the world and expressive arts. And I'll explain each of those areas in a bit more detail now. So the first of the prime areas is communication and language, which is split into 3 headings: listening and attention, understanding and speaking, which are all quite self-explanatory. Listening and attention is how well the children listen and how well they pay attention to things in small groups. Understanding, so how well they understand what is being told to them, what's being taught to them, can they follow instructions? And speaking, of course, how well can they be understood, how What sort of language do they use to explain what they're doing, to explain their understanding, and do they develop their vocabulary linked with their interests and linked with their activities that they're doing. So the next prime area is physical development, which is broken down into two headings, moving and handling and health and self-care. The moving and handling, within that we've got our fine motor skills and our gross motor skills. So gross motor skills would include things like balancing, jumping, running around, spatial awareness, throwing and catching a ball. Fine motor skills would cover things like cutting out, pencil control. That would come obviously a bit further into the year in early years. How they're able to control very small fine movements like threading, picking up very tiny little objects, how strong are their muscles in their hands, and that's what we really work on really at the beginning of the year to really strengthen those hand muscles. And I know that we're going to be talking about that a little bit later on in the presentation. Health and self-care is all to do with, do children understand the need for a healthy diet, and do they eat a good balanced variety of foods? Are they able to take themselves to the toilet, and are they clean and dry throughout the day? And are they able to keep themselves safe? Do they understand risk? Do they keep themselves safe in the classroom? Do they know that they need to hold scissors appropriately to not hurt anybody? Do they know that perhaps they need to check that the ladder's safe before they climb? So it's showing awareness of how they can keep themselves safe in the environment. So the last of the prime areas is personal, social and emotional development, which is split into making relationships, self-confidence and awareness, and managing feelings and behaviour. So making relationships is focusing on forming really good friendships with other children, being able to solve conflict for themselves rather than relying on an adult all the time, but also making relationships with familiar adults in the setting as well. Self-confidence and awareness, we assess them not based on how loud they are and how willing they are to participate, because we also understand that some children are shy, they're just shy by nature, which is absolutely fine, and you can be shy and still have confidence. So we really try and nurture that confidence in encouraging them to try and ask for help, explain when they do like something, when they don't like something, and just sort of approach people and talk to people about how they're feeling. And then lastly, managing feelings and behaviour. So again, can they adapt their behaviour in different social situations? Do they understand and follow the rules and the boundaries set within the classroom? So once we feel the children have really secured the prime areas, we then move on to the specific areas. So firstly, we're going to talk about literacy, which is split into reading and writing. Now, reading will not necessarily begin with actually them being able to read. It's showing an awareness of books. Perhaps they pick up a book and they pretend that they're reading just by looking at the stories, or they've memorised a book that they really, really love at home. That is classed as reading, and we really encourage that. And then obviously that later leads on to starting to read individual words, and then later on into reading simple sentences. We also, within literacy, focus on writing, of course. Again, at the beginning, this may just be lots and lots of scribbles, but they will say, well, that says this is a cat. Well, it doesn't say that, but to them it does, and they're actually ascribing meaning to what they've written, which is really, really important and a really, really good start in them learning to write. And obviously this will later move on to forming letters, and then later on simple sentences. So another specific area is maths, which is broken down into numbers, shape, space and measure. Now, as you can see from the photos, we very, very rarely ever use a pen and paper or pen and whiteboard for maths activities and for teaching maths concepts, because we think it's so, so important to have hands-on experiences using concrete resources that are as close to real life experiences as the children have had as possible, you know, to make it fun and also to make it relevant for the children. So understanding of the world is broken down into people and communities, the world and technology. So people and communities covers things like traditions and different cultures and different religions, as well as different jobs that people do, so showing an interest in people around us. The world is more sort of your geography aspect, so it focuses very much, and also your science side of things. It focuses on where we live in relation to other places, what our environment is like, lots of things to do with nature and growing things. And then technology, aside from the obvious sort of computers and iPads and laptops, it's also how well children are able to perhaps use a mobile phone, which actually in this day and age, a lot of children know how to use the phones better than the adults. Can they use the remote control to change the TV programme? Are they able to use FaceTime without any adult help? So how easy do the children find it to use technology in everyday life? And actually we're finding increasingly that the children are really scoring high on this because they have so much exposure and opportunities at home to use different types of technology. And the final area of learning is expressive arts and design, which covers exploring and using media and materials and also being imaginative. So it covers all of the lovely craft things, so painting, making models, building towers using the bricks, as well as role-playing, dressing up, singing songs, making music, retelling stories and playing make-believe. All those really lovely things comes under expressive arts and design.
So I'm now going to go through what a typical day in Shacadel class looks like, and as it comes up on the screen you'll see how much we really fit into one day. And there's so much learning going on throughout the day in Shacadel, whether it's in small groups with adult directed tasks or on the carpet, or in child initiated learning where we follow the interests of the children through their play, which I know Mrs. Laird already mentioned, and also just the transitional parts of the day where the children are learning how to put their coats on and how to eat their food with knives and forks and to play with other children out on the playground in the field. So as they come up, I'm going to explain a little bit about each part. So when we come in the morning, we have self-registration. That will be a question outside the classroom that you can read to your children, and as the year progresses, they'll be able to read themselves with a yes/no answer, and the children find their name and put their basket in the yes or no basket. It's just a good way to start having a little think about a question and children taking ownership of their arrival. After that, we come in and we do something called Busy Fingers. Now, Mrs. Layle mentioned how important it is to practice our fine motor skills, and Busy Fingers is a perfect scenario for that. The children come in, they find their name against an activity, and these are varied across the week and they really enjoy them. It gives them a great focus to start their morning, and it's a really good way of settling in before we take the register. During the register, the children will explain to us what lunch they're going to have, and I'll talk to you a little bit about that in a while. After that, we have a phonics session. Now, phonics is arguably one of the most important parts of our whole day. We will be teaching your children to read and write quicker than you can even imagine. And it's so amazing to go from the start of the year where they may recognise a few letters and sounds or their name to coming to the end now where we have children writing sentences, and it's such a great progression to see through the year. And phonics sessions happen absolutely every day. It's non-negotiable, it's never something that gets left out, and it's such a important time in our class. And later in the autumn term we will be putting on a phonics session to show you what the kinds of things we teach, the kinds of games we play, and to help you to understand how we teach phonics in the early years. After that, we have a session of child initiated learning. If you were to walk into our classroom, that might look like play, but really we set out activities that are to engage the children and to interest them and to try and get them to think in a different way. And we really like to go with their interests, to push them on with questioning and to really see what kind of learning we can get out of them through their play. After that, we have break time with snack. Again, we will talk a little bit about milk a little bit later. The snack is something that's provided free of charge, so you don't need to bring a snack to school. To start with, we often have break in our own outside area, but then as the children get more used to school, we like to have our break time with the older children. That is one of the beautiful things about this school, how all the children mix together and love to play together, and you'll soon see that as your child settles in here. After this, we have maths. Where that says AD, that means adult directed. This is normally a short time on the carpet and then some maths games or activities with concrete materials to really help make maths interesting and easy for the children to access. After that, we have all important lunch, and by then they're really ready for it. Lunchtime again, I'll go through in a little while. After this, we have normally a topic session. Again, this could be anything. It can be writing, it can be creative, it can be stories. There are so many things that we cover across the year, and no doubt this will be the thing that your children come home and talk to you a lot about, because they always get so engaged in our topics. On Mondays and Fridays, we have PE with Mr. Nash, who is our sports coach, and the children absolutely love him. He's brilliant with the young children, and they have really high quality PE sessions right from reception age, which is great. Obviously, we asked for a PE kit to be named. I'm sure you can imagine how busy it can get in a classroom of young children trying to get changed, and their things can go wandering into another bag. So as long as we can have names on absolutely every item that is in their PE bag, it makes things a lot easier. After that, we have another session of child initiated learning, because it's just such an important part of our day. So the children will get to work inside or outside in their chosen areas. Then we have a short break time before the end of the day. This is normally just us and Key Stage 1. Then we will go to assembly. On Mondays and Fridays, that's in the class. The rest of the days, that is in the hall with all of the rest of the school. And then lastly, we finish our day with a fantastic story time, and then home time, where they'll be ready to come and flop into your arms after a very, very busy day. So now we get to a very important part of the day, lunchtime. Now, before your child comes into school, if they're going to be having school dinner, then you will need to choose their dinner choice, and information about that will be given to you later. Now, there are 3 choices which you need to order on school comms by 8 AM in the morning, and you can do that actually 3 weeks in advance. Then at lunchtime, the children come in and they will carry their own lunch on a special plate with all of the sections, and they then sit together and eat their lunch. Packed lunches and school dinners all eat together, and it's a great time for them to socialise and also to practice using a knife and fork if they're having school dinners. And it's just a really good time for them to try new foods. Often we find that children who aren't as comfortable eating get really good at trying new things when they are sat with lots of other children from their class who are doing the same. At Aston St Mary's School, we are always very proud of our buddies system that we run in reception. Now, what we normally do is we have a reception child who's linked to a child from year 5-6 who looks after them for the beginning of school, and is someone that they often make a very special bond with at their time at Aston. These children often read with them, they spend their lunch times with them and help them to cut up their food and things like that, and they also seek each other out at playtime, check in with each other. It's just such a special thing that is really unique about our school, and just shows how caring the older children are to the younger children. Now, in our current situation where we are in bubbles, this may not be able to happen, but it's definitely something that we will bring in later in the year if we aren't able to do that right away, because we just know how important and special it is.
So, as I mentioned earlier, we're really, really lucky that we have been able to develop over the last few years a fantastic forest school area within our own grounds, and it's really, really lovely clearing where the children can go out and they can explore, they can make campfires and build dens. It really, really is a lovely opportunity for the children to go outside in all weathers. And we're also so lucky that the forest school leader is actually also our lovely TA in our classroom, Mrs. Skull. So the early years children are fortunate enough that they get to go out and do forest school every single week, at least one morning every week. And we go out like we said before, all weathers, but to ensure that they can go out in all weathers, we would require for you to send them in with a puddle suit and with a pair of wellies, both of which we would need to stay at school throughout the whole year, and obviously named and clearly named and clearly labelled, so that the children can go out and they can jump in the puddles and they can get muddy and it doesn't matter because everything is protected. So we often get asked what sort of homework would we set for children in the early years in Shackdale, and the answer is we don't set any homework, as we believe that the children learn so much when they're at school that actually they're exhausted by the time they get home, especially after that first term. They're absolutely shattered, and the last thing we want them to do is to be sat down doing more work when they get home. But the only thing we really do think is so important is to do reading. So that's the only homework that we will set. We may give the odd challenge, but it'll be a fun task or something to do over a half term. But reading is so important. Reading with your child, reading to your child, getting them to read signs and labels or recognise letters and sounds that they notice in their environment. It's so important to get that really that love of books and love of stories and love of reading really early on, to ensure that they have a love for it throughout their whole time at school.
So another thing we often get asked is how can we help our children at home be ready for school, and also what can we be doing at home whilst they've started school that would really help them. And we have a number of things here, and I'm sure some of them will make you smile because they're things you've been trying to get your children to do for a while, but they're all things that would be really helpful if they could master over the coming months. So we really impress upon our children that it's their responsibility to look after their own things, and often they'll lose a jumper or goodness knows what else, but we will say to them, you need to go and find that or put it on your peg. And it's really good if you could also encourage them to take responsibility for their own things as well. Mrs. Low's already mentioned that daily reading is so important, and just spending time enjoying books. We really want to develop a love of reading right from the day dot. So if you could do that as well, that'd be fantastic. Dressing independently is a key one. Twice a week we have PE, and there's a few members of staff in the classroom, but not enough to be helping every single child to be getting dressed. And really it would be great if they could be taking some independence in that and getting their clothes on and off themselves. Even things like making sure they're not inside out and they're the right way around. Those are all really key skills that they could be learning at the moment. Using a knife and fork. It's actually really common for children not to start off using a knife and a fork at home. Quite often we use maybe a fork and a spoon, but as soon as they start school, knife and fork are going to both be there for them to use. So getting some practicing with that would be brilliant. Songs and nursery rhymes. It does sound silly, but it's so important that the children know these. Rhyming is one of the first things we look for before we can really move into phase 2 phonics, and nursery rhymes are obviously full of them, and also the familiar songs that you might think are, you know, just for nursery. The children absolutely love them, and we sing them a lot at school, and they're really good for the children, especially when they involve counting or again rhyming. Rhyming words, again, can you spot the theme? It is really important that the children can identify this at an early age, and you'll probably notice that your children already can guess the rhyme when you're reading a story. Books like the Julia Donaldson books are fantastic, written in rhyme. Getting the children to really notice that in books is fantastic. Recognising numbers and signs around them. You'd be surprised how many numbers are around you on a daily walk. You know, children will love to spot them and hunt them down. Give them that challenge, and it will really set them up for good number recognition. Recognising their name. As soon as they come into school, they're going to need to be able to find their name on their peg, on their busy fingers spot. So if they can do that before they start, then that's great. Start them off by looking for the first letter in their name and so on until they recognise the shape of it at least. Using the toilet unaided. Again, this is key. It's really important that children are able to try their very best with this. I know that some children find it difficult to wipe, but keep practicing with them, keep explaining to them that this is something that they need to be able to do on their own when they get to school, and we'll work alongside you to achieve that one. Peeling their own fruit. It sounds like a funny one, but we get different types of fruit every day. And until you've had to peel 18 satsumas, you won't realise how many children don't know how to do it. So if you could get them to practice that, peeling bananas, peeling satsumas, that's another great skill that will set them up well for their time in reception. And the last one is zips and buttons. Obviously, to start with, we may not be in coats, but as soon as those winter months hit, it can take a while to get them all into their zips and their buttons on their coats. So that is another great skill that they could be practicing going forward.
So parent partnership, particularly in the early years, is so important. We feel that we have a real open door policy. You can come and chat to us about your child at any time, before school or after school, or if you'd rather, you can phone the office and make an appointment. But it's really, really important that you communicate any concerns, any worries that you may have throughout the year with us, so that we can support you and we can help you. Or if you've got any questions or queries, that we can answer them straight away, because we know it's, for some parents, especially if it's your first child that's starting school, myself included, once they go off to school, you don't really know what they're doing when they're at school. And hopefully we've got Tapestry, so you'll have updates of what they're actually doing. But they'll come home and they'll say things that perhaps might worry you, or you think, oh, that doesn't sound right, or they're a bit upset. So please, at any point, please just get in contact, pick up the phone or come and have a chat with us. We're always there to talk with you and help out and support you as much as we can. We will have parents' evening twice a year, and we will send out reports. So in that instance, we will talk about them socially, but also academically. And then when you get the report at the end of the year, you'll get your child's levels, which hopefully, because of the ongoing conversations we've had throughout the year, there won't be any surprises that come up in the reports. We try and encourage parents to be as active as possible within the class. So we invite you to come in and be a mystery reader. So this will happen after half term, depending on the situation, of course. But where we say we have a mystery reader and it's going to be a parent, but they don't know which parent, and it's a lovely surprise, and the children really, really enjoy it, and they love it when it's their mummy or their daddy or their nanny or auntie, whoever, it doesn't really matter. And they come in and they read a story to the children. They really, really enjoy that. We encourage you to contribute to the Learning Journal. So as I mentioned before, we have Tapestry, which I know some of you may have used already at preschool. And that's a way of us informing you what your child's been learning at school, but also a way of you letting us know of anything you've been doing at home. So any real key achievements, learning to ride their bike, if they've written their name, anything you feel like is a real wow moment, pop it on Tapestry, and we'll always comment, always bring it up or show the picture in class with the other children and sort of share all their special achievements. Equally, you can comment on Tapestry to any sort of learning that you've seen and you want to make a little comment at the bottom. We always love reading your comments. You can be updated on the school website. That's always updated with photos from us for our class page, but also any other letters or information that the office may have sent out. You can also access any information on the school website, so just keep checking that. Your expertise. So in the past, we've had people who are police officers, firefighters, vets, nurses, any sort of job really. We love having people in to come and explain what they do to the children. The children love it. So if you or there's somebody that you know that would be willing to come in and have a chat with the children, bring some props and yeah, just explain what you do, or perhaps there's a certain skill that you're really good at that you would like to come in and teach the children or explain to them about, or perhaps your culture or your religion that you'd like to come in and share with the other children, then we would always really, really be grateful for anyone willing to come in and just share with the children. Phonics workshops. So we understand phonics for a lot of parents is a new concept that perhaps, well, I know I definitely didn't have it when I was at school. So in the autumn term, quite early on, we'll send out a date for a phonics workshop with it will either be online for, hopefully we'll be able to have you in school. And that's really, really useful. I know that from the feedback from previous years that we've done it, it's really helped parents. So if you can attend that, then look out for that and please do attend. And lastly, we always offer a stay and play. Usually once the children have settled a little bit after half term, we'll invite you to come in and just see around the classroom and see what sort of activities and learning that the children have been doing. And they're always really keen to show you their favourite areas of the classroom and have a look at their learning journals and things like that. So again, keep an eye out for that date for the stay and play, because that's always really, really worth attending.
Now we're just going to go through a few general admin things. So if you happen to be a late arrival or indeed a late collection, then this has to go through the office. So if you come later and the gate is already shut, if you go to the office, your child can come through the office door and you can communicate that with the office staff. Again, if you are late to collect, then we will take your child to the office and they will wait there for you to come through the office to collect them. If there is a time when another person is going to collect your child, it's really, really vital that you tell us that that's going to happen. We won't let a child go with another adult unless we know that in advance. The best way to communicate that is via phone call or email to the office. Even if your child recognises the person, if we don't have that information in advance, then we won't let them go and we'll have to call you to have you confirm that. So make sure you send that information in beforehand. If your child is absent, if they're unwell, then it's good to communicate that with school on the day, again via phone call or email, just so we can log that into our systems. If you require your child to come out for a holiday, that would be an unauthorised absence. Again, you need to email that to email your request or get a request form to the office, and Mrs. Winwood would be in contact with you about that. Uniform, I know you will have had information about Maypack. This is where we order our uniform from. If you have any questions or queries about that, then again you can ask at the office, but it was pretty clear, the list of uniform, what you're allowed and what you're not allowed to have, and where you can get that from. I know you will now through the post have received a milk letter. It's really important that comes back by the 10th of July because that's the deadline for ordering the milk for the next term. You will not have to pay for milk until the term that your child turns 5. So if your child is going to turn 5 between September and December, then you would have to pay for the milk for that term right from the beginning. Again, if your child turns 5 between January and Easter, then you would have to pay for milk from January. So that's just so that you know how that works. If you would like milk to be given to your child from the beginning of September, then you need to send that in by the 10th of July. We can't change the order on that after that point. School comms and the Gateway app. This is really important. I know you will have signed some paperwork explaining which email address you want connected to that, but you must make sure that you download the app that goes alongside that. There will already be communications coming out through that in the coming weeks, and also that's where you choose what your child's going to eat for lunch, and that's where you can do all kinds of payments and things like that. So it's really important. Any communications from the office that are class-wide or school-wide go through school comms, so it's really important that you have that app. And the last thing we wanted to just mention is that throughout this year there will be some set points in the year that you can that we have a formal discussion with you about your child's progress. 2 of those are in parents' evenings, so one in the autumn term and one in the spring. And then the last thing that we do towards the end of the year is we send out a school report which will give full details about how your child has achieved across the year, and hopefully a lovely insight into the great things that they've been doing throughout the year and the things that they've been learning.
So in terms of transition arrangements for this term, unfortunately due to the current situation, things aren't going at how we would normally do them. We would have loved to have seen you and your children several times by this point and have visited them at their preschool, but instead we're we've had emails already with some of the preschools, and we will be having a phone call to have a proper handover with the staff at their previous setting. And we're also planning to do a bit of a meet and greet on the field. So we're going to invite just 3 children at a time with just 1 adult. I'm afraid we're only allowed to have 1 adult, so we've got a total of 6 people that are coming onto the school field. Bring a picnic blanket, get your children to bring their favourite toy that they can show us, and we'll plan a few activities, have a little story. It'll only be for about 45 minutes, and we will send out a letter soon to allocate your time so you can plan arrangements if you need to. And that will be on Wednesday the 15th of July. So it will be at some point throughout the day, you will be allocated a 45-minute slot to come in and meet myself and meet Mrs. Holmes and Mrs. Skull and Mrs. Winwood, the head teacher, and just for the children to sort of introduce themselves to us and for us to introduce ourselves to them. And if you've got any questions as well, it's a good time sort of in a small group to bring anything up that you'd like to discuss with us. So we're really looking forward to seeing you all. Hope you can all make it.
So now I come to the first week in September, and normally I would be able to give you very, very clear dates and times for this first week. However, at the moment we are still awaiting government guidelines as to what schooling will look like in September. And so at the moment I can tell you what we expect it to be, although this could change, and if it does, we will obviously send you clear instructions over the summer as to the timings and the days. So the first Monday in September, Monday the 2nd, is an inset day. That is when we have our teacher training and there will be no children in school. After this, we anticipate that there will be a staggered transition over the first week or 2 where children will come for a reduced day, so normally till lunchtime, having lunch and then going home after. We quite often start with a staggered arrival time, so have a 15-minute slot for you to come. Again, this could change and will vary considering what the rest of the school are also doing, but again we will send you clear details about this over the coming months. The children will have their lunch all together in the first week, and then it will be collection at 1:15, ready to come home and to tell you all about the things that they've been doing in their first week at school.
So we hope you found that PowerPoint really useful. We understand there's a lot of information there, so if you do have any questions, feel free to email the address above, and we'll try and get back to you with any information that you might need.
Thanks for watching. We really look forward to having a face-to-face meeting with you and your child in the coming weeks, and we'll see you soon. Bye. Bye.